so I couldn't have an October Horror-thon without featuring an iconic horror movie. Here's one that I think is an iconic one. Hellraiser. Yeah, Hellraiser is from 1987. It is a movie by Clive Barker, who is the new Prince of Horror, according to Time magazine. And also Stephen King says, "I have seen the future of horror, and his name is Clive Barker." Now that's high praise coming from Stephen King. That line was used to market all of like Clive Barker's stuff in the late 80s and early 90s. And don't get me wrong, Hellraiser is a good movie. But I think it was helped along a little bit by Stephen King. Now, Hellraiser is not a slasher film. It is a horror film. It's about the depths of depravity and the extremes that human beings will go to in order to pursue the goal of ultimate pleasure and ultimate pain. In fact, that's what that whole little puzzle box is all about. You know, Hellraiser, you know, the puzzle box, the little thing, and you've seen it before. If you've seen any Hellraiser or even heard of Hellraiser, you're probably familiar with the little puzzle box. Anyway, here it is on screen so I can show you some more of it. It's cool. Basically, this whole puzzle box is supposed to be like able to make a gateway to the dimension of ultimate pleasure and ultimate pain. Every time that this happens, we also see the Cenobites, who are like, well, they say in the movie that they are neither angels nor demons, but they are interdimensional beings who have pursued ultimate pain and ultimate pleasure for so long that they no longer know the difference. Okay, yeah, so it's all pretty cerebral, right? We definitely have a villain in the movie, but it's actually not Pinhead. I mean, he is a villain, and he is like, well, he's definitely not a hero. But he's one of the Cenobites that just happens to arrive when this dimensional gateway is opened. There's a lot of freaky visuals in there. People like going to hell or having their soul ripped away or being stripped of their flesh. And there's some grossness in it. There's an especially gross scene where one of the characters like reanimates very, very slowly and very goopy. That's actually a really good scene. It creeped the hell out of me. There's also some cheesy kind of monster stuff in there. Or there's one, and people say, "Oh, that's the craziest monster ever," and I just look at it and go, That looks so crappy and so cheap. Speaking of cheap, I don't think this movie really cost very much to make. Well, in terms of like big screen movies. I guess this was like $1 million budget, and it made like 15 times that at the box office. So yeah, it was a huge success, and Hellraiser spawned all those sequels, some of which are okay. The first couple are not bad. As a matter of fact, if I remember correctly, I haven't seen that one in a while, but I think Hellraiser 2 is maybe a little bit better. And I have Hellraiser 3, and I'm eventually going to watch that, but I haven't seen that yet. And no interest in any of those more modern Hellraiser sequels, which are actually just totally unrelated horror movies that were marketed to be part of this franchise. So all they had to do was throw in 5 minutes of Pinhead in the box, and you got a Hellraiser movie. Doesn't matter what it's about. Anyway, that's kind of sad, because this original story I think is pretty good, and it's pretty creepy, and it's a very menacing kind of movie, and everybody wants this like ultimate power and just wants to fuck over everybody else to get it. Well, everybody except for our one actual protagonist, Kirsty, who wants to stop her reanimated uncle Frank and his evil wife Julia, or evil lover Julia, who was formerly her stepmother. Anyway, yeah, there's a bunch of family stuff in there, and there's a bunch of stuff about this guy Frank that he opens the box and summons the demons, and he finds the gateway to hell, or the land of ultimate pain and pleasure, I guess. Again, it's all about the visuals here. Yeah, we see some really gory stuff, and the Cenobites themselves, I think they look kind of stupid, but I get where they're coming from here, where the concept of it is. It just comes off really dumb, and I know that in some of the sequels going forwards, the Cenobites get really dumb, like the guy with the camera face or something. When it comes to Clive Barker, I think this is probably one of his better achievements. It's a solid movie. I gotta admit, I jumped on the Clive Barker bandwagon in the late 80s, early 90s. I read all the books of blood. I read The Great and Secret Show and Weave World. I watched Nightbreed. I can't say that I loved all those things, but I was entertained. One thing to note about his type of fiction is that it's very, well, how do you say, perverted? Psychosexual. He seems very hung up on sort of forbidden pornography, taboo kind of stuff, and he takes it to another level. I'm not a huge fan of that because I find some of that really, really gross, but they don't go too heavy in this movie. Clive Barker, I guess overall I kind of like his stuff, but I don't like all of his stuff. Hellraiser is one of those things that I like. I gotta say that it's kind of creepy and sinister, like the whole plot of Frank, the guy who originally finds the box and comes back to life and murders his brother and stuff, and that whole storyline is pretty intriguing, and it's kind of disturbing, but overall it makes for a good movie. And our protagonist, Kirsty, she's pretty good, and played by Ashley Lawrence. I think she's in the first one and the second one. Like, she's believable, she's a good actress. All the actors are actually pretty good in this. Another thing about this film is that it was shot in the UK. Now, for whatever reason, when I was watching this the last time, I was like, is this a Canadian movie? Like, for some reason didn't feel like an American movie at all. Well, I mean, it did, and they wanted it to be like set in America and all that stuff. They shot the whole movie in the UK, and they said, no, we're not releasing it in America unless you say that it takes place in America. Why? What does that matter? But anyway, I don't know, I guess being British or having some British influence in there, I guess that's maybe why it felt more Canadian. I don't know. And I heard they actually had to overdub some of the actors because their accents were too thick. Alright. I could describe the entire plot of Hellraiser to you, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to give it a very high recommendation. I'm going to give Hellraiser a B+. B+, because it's pretty good. There's some scenes that are kind of disgusting, and that's a little horrifying. I mean, it's 1987, right? Not everything's going to get you. It's not a jump scary kind of movie, but it has a few of those too. But it's not so much like Nightmare on Elm Street or Friday the 13th series of movies. But for whatever reason, they wanted to make Pinhead into the next horror icon. I mean, there's a leprechaun right there. But yeah, so they kind of made Pinhead into a horror icon. And you don't really see that at all in this film. Maybe in other ones going forward, yeah. But this one, no. It's good. It's B+ good. I think it's good, solid horror movie watching for this October. So until the next horror film we get to review here, stay safe out there. And have a good one, everybody.